How significant is this trip? It was a sort of reminder that although he's done lots and lots of video appearances, President Zelensky hasn't left Ukraine since before February.
Yeah, it's a big deal, and it's a recognition, of course, that the US is essentially running this war, and it explains why we've developed this bond with Zelensky, this kind of the sense that Ukrainians are shedding their blood with our weapons and our training, so that we don't have to shed ours. It's a kind of war aversion strategy of the West and NATO. So it's important, and it's important for two main reasons. One is that again, a new array of weapons are needed, so that Ukraine doesn't constantly seem to be on the defensive, because that's how it seems at the moment. They're being peppered by, Russian cruise missiles, Iranian cruise missiles fired by Russians. So the question is then, what kind of weapons do they get? And can America trust them with certain kinds of weapons that could hit Russian soil and perhaps provoke a proper, huge East-West military confrontation? And that's the balance that has to be struck in Zelensky's meeting with Biden. And the other is that there's a bit of Zelensky fatigue. Yeah, people, especially in Congress and new Republican-controlled House, there are quite a lot of voices there saying, if we're going to have an enemy, let it be China, or where's all this, where's the accounting for all this money that we're sending to Ukraine? And of course, there's the old Trumpists who are saying, well, Putin, is quite an effective leader, really. So he has to, and that's why he went to a battle zone a couple of days ago, so that it looks like he's still got mud on his boots, to demonstrate to a possibly reluctant Congress that they should carry on dishing out the cash.
Because it's a lot of cash as well. America's committed far more than any other country, something like $18.5 billion. There's another $2 billion on the table today in a new package. What role do you think Britain plays in all this? Because clearly Boris Johnson was, trying to portray himself as the closest ally of Zelensky. But the fact that he's going to Washington and not London, does that tell us anything about Britain's role in all this? Or is it just the fact that the Americans are spending far more money?
Yes, I think that's the pecking order, because money determines it. But also military advice comes largely from America rather than Britain. What we're doing very well is training lots and lots of Ukrainians, which you need. And we're doing a fair bit more than the other Europeans. So we're top of the class in Europe, really, in many respects, European NATO members. So, but Rishi has struck a different tone. This is true. He's talking about, let's do an audit of what we are sending to Ukraine. Well, we know what an accountant means by audit. It means he's getting ready to slice different things off the shopping list. So it's not the Johnsonian, we're in it to, our necks, we're in the trenches with you and all this kind of stuff. But it's not. He's not alone in this. Yeah, there are a lot of people in America who are saying the same.
And just on the broader point, where we are as we come to the end of 2022, clearly there was a huge international reaction when Russia first invaded Ukraine. Who is winning? Is there any way that Putin ultimately loses this war? Do you think?
Well, this is the debate whether there is a tipping point for Russia, the simple answer is that to reach a tipping point with Russia, one would have to escalate massively, and let's say America would have to be behind it. And this is then the political breaking point. That's why Zelensky is in Washington at the moment. He has to persuade them to push that much further, because he's fighting for the international community and not just for the survival of Ukraine.